Let me ask you something uncomfortable. You showed up to work today. You answered emails, sat through meetings, scrolled through updates, jumped between apps, responded to messages, and at the end of the day, what did you actually produce? What moved forward? What got built? What changed? Most people, if they are completely honest, cannot answer that question. And here is the terrifying part. This is not a productivity problem. This is not a time management problem. This is a brain problem. Because the way most of us work today, constantly switching, constantly reacting, constantly distracted, is literally destroying our ability to think deeply. And without deep thinking, you cannot produce great work. Without great work, you cannot build a great career or a great life. Today, we are breaking down one of the most important books ever written on this subject. It is called Deep Work by Cal Newport. And I'm going to tell you right now, this book does not just explain the problem, it gives you a complete system to fix it. We are going to go through every major concept, every rule, and every real-world strategy from this book. By the time this video is over, you will understand exactly what deep work is, why it is becoming the most valuable skill in the modern economy, and precisely how to build it into your life starting today. Let us get into it. Before we dive in, if you are serious about upgrading your mind, your productivity, and your financial life, you need to subscribe to Millionaire Playbook right now. This channel is not about motivation, it is about implementation. Real strategies, real breakdowns, real results. Hit subscribe and let us get back to changing your life. What is deep work? The foundation. Cal Newport opens this book with a powerful story. In the 1920s, the legendary psychologist Carl Jung built a stone tower in the Swiss woods. He called it the Bollingen Tower. He retreated there regularly. No electricity, no distractions, just long hours of uninterrupted thought. At the time, Jung was engaged in one of the most difficult intellectual battles of the century, breaking away from the ideas of his mentor Sigmund Freud and building an entirely new school of psychology. Jung did not go to that tower to escape work. He went there to advance it. And he defined what Cal Newport calls deep work. Deep work is defined in this book as professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. The opposite of deep work is shallow work. Shallow work is the non-cognitively demanding logistical tasks you do while partially distracted. Answering emails, attending unnecessary meetings, scrolling through updates, sharing documents back and forth. None of this moves the needle. All of it feels busy. Newport's central argument is this: deep work is becoming increasingly rare at exactly the same time it is becoming increasingly valuable, and those who master it will thrive while everyone else falls behind. Let that sink in for a moment. The skill most needed in our economy is the one most people are actively destroying through their daily habits. Part 1. Why deep work matters. Chapter 1. Deep work is valuable. Newport introduces us to the concept of the Great Restructuring. Technology is not just changing which jobs exist, it is changing who wins within every field. He describes 3 groups who will thrive in the new economy. First, high-skilled workers, people who can work creatively with intelligent machines, data scientists, engineers, analysts, people who can master complex systems and extract real value from them. Second, superstars, the best in their field. When technology makes remote collaboration easy, companies stop hiring local talent and start competing for the very best in the world. If you are not among the best, you get pushed out. Third, owners, those with capital to invest in new technologies. Newport acknowledges that most people cannot easily join the third group, but the first 2 are accessible. And here is the critical insight. Both require deep work. To become a high-skilled worker, you must learn hard things quickly. Real learning, the kind that builds lasting competence, cannot happen in a distracted state. It requires focused, sustained, uninterrupted concentration. Newport explains the science here. Research by Anders Ericsson, the father of deliberate practice theory, shows that expertise comes from intense, focused effort on a specific skill. And neuroscience confirms why. When you concentrate intensely on something, you cause your brain cells to fire in isolation, triggering a process where a substance called myelin wraps around those neural pathways, making them faster and more efficient. Distraction prevents this process. Multitasking destroys it. The formula Newport gives us is simple and powerful. High-quality work equals time spent multiplied by intensity of focus. You can double your output without working more hours simply by raising the intensity of your focus during the hours you do work. This is what the best performers in every field already understand. He also introduces the concept of attention residue. When you switch from one task to another, part of your attention stays stuck on the previous task. Your brain can't immediately follow. Every task switch leaves residue, and every switch degrades your performance on the new task. This is why checking email every 10 minutes, even briefly, is not harmless. Every check is a switch. Every switch leaves residue, and your thinking pays the price. Chapter 2. Deep work is rare. Here is the paradox. Even though deep work is more valuable than ever, most organizations are actively moving away from it. Open-plan offices, instant messaging tools, the expectation of always-on connectivity, social media presence requirements, all of these trends fragment attention and make deep work nearly impossible. Why does this happen? Newport offers 3 explanations. First, the metric black hole. It's very hard to measure the value of deep work or the cost of distraction. When you can't measure something, it gets deprioritized in favor of things that are easy to see. Second, the principle of least resistance. Without clear feedback on what actually drives results, people and organizations default to whatever is easiest in the moment. And in the short term, responding to emails and attending meetings is easier than sitting alone with a hard problem for 4 hours. Third, busyness as a proxy for productivity. When you don't have clear metrics for what good work looks like, you default to looking busy. You fill your calendar, you respond quickly to messages, you perform productivity rather than actually being productive. This is devastating for most careers, but for you, as someone who now understands this, it is an enormous opportunity. If everyone around you is distracted and you are not, you will produce better work in less time. You will be rarer. You will be more valuable. Chapter 3. Deep work is meaningful. Newport's third argument goes deeper than economics. He argues that deep work doesn't just make you more productive, it makes your life better. He draws on 3 powerful frameworks. Neurologically, the scientist Winifred Gallagher discovered after a series cancer diagnosis that what we pay attention to shapes our experience of life. If you spend your day attending to shallow, trivial, and frustrating things, your mind will construct a world dominated by stress and irritation. If you spend your day absorbed in deep, meaningful work, your mind will construct a world that feels rich and purposeful. Same circumstances, entirely different inner experience. Your attention is the architect of your reality. Psychologically, the renowned psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying happiness. His research found that people are at their happiest not when they're relaxing, but when they are fully absorbed in challenging work. He called this state flow, and it turns out that deep work is the ideal generator of flow. When you go deep, you enter a state that feels rewarding at a level that shallow work simply cannot reach. Philosophically, Newport references the philosophers Hubert Dreyfus and Sean Kelly, who argue that in our modern secular world, the craft tradition offers one of the few remaining paths to genuine meaning. When you master something, when you apply your skills with care and seriousness, you connect to something larger than yourself. The blacksmith perfecting a blade, the programmer writing beautiful code, the writer crafting a perfect sentence. These are not just tasks, they are acts of devotion, and deep work is what makes craftsmanship possible. The conclusion of Part 1 is clear. Deep work is economically valuable, it is rare, and it makes life worth living. Now the question becomes, how do you actually build it? Part 2. The rules. Rule 1. Work deeply. The first and most important rule is to create a system for going deep rather than relying on willpower alone. Newport makes a critical point here. Research on willpower shows that it is a finite resource. It depletes throughout the day. You can't simply decide to focus and expect that decision to hold under pressure. You need structure. You need rituals. You need an environment that makes deep work the default, not the exception. He introduces 4 philosophies for scheduling deep work. The first is the monastic philosophy. This is total commitment. You eliminate almost all shallow obligations. Donald Newport, the legendary computer scientist, does not have an email address. He's been happily without one since 1990. He gave a postal address, a physical mailing address, and processes correspondence a few times a year. This approach is right for very few people, but it is worth knowing it exists. The second is the bimodal philosophy. You divide your time into clearly defined periods of depth and openness. Carl Jung used this approach, weeks of deep retreat at the tower, followed by periods of full engagement in Zurich. The key is that during the deep periods, you go fully monastic, no halfway measures. The minimum unit of time for this approach is usually 1 full day. The third is the rhythmic philosophy. This is the most practical for most people. You set a fixed time every day for deep work, early morning, for example, and you do it consistently, day after day. The power comes from turning deep work into a habit that no longer requires a decision to start. Jerry Seinfeld famously used a version of this to write jokes every single day. He kept a calendar on his wall and put a red X on every day he wrote. His only job was to not break the chain. The fourth is the journalistic philosophy. You fit deep work into whatever gaps appear in your schedule, shifting instantly into deep mode whenever time opens up. This approach requires practice and confidence. It is not for beginners, but for experienced deep workers, it is highly effective. Newport then gives you specific tools for making deep work sessions work. First, ritualize. Great thinkers are rarely haphazard about their work habits. Charles Darwin had a precise daily routine for decades. Robert Caro, the Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer, governs every inch of his office with rules. These rituals are not quirks, they are systems for minimizing the friction of getting started. Your ritual should answer 3 questions. Where will you work and for how long? What rules will govern your behavior during the session? No internet, for example. And what support does your brain need? Coffee, a walk beforehand, specific music? Second, make grand gestures. Sometimes the best way to signal to your brain that this work matters is to make a dramatic commitment to it. J.K. Rowling checked into a luxury hotel suite to finish the final Harry Potter book. Bill Gates famously took 2-week think weeks, retreating to a cabin with nothing but books and papers. The financial investment or logistical effort sends a message to your mind. This is important enough to deserve your full attention. Third, execute like a business using the 4 disciplines of execution framework. Focus on your wildly important goal. Identify a lead measure. For deep work, this is hours spent in deep concentration per week. Keep a scoreboard where you physically track these hours, and hold yourself accountable through weekly reviews. Fourth, be lazy. At the end of each workday, shut down completely. Newport calls this the shutdown ritual. Review your task lists, check your calendar, make a plan for tomorrow, then say a specific phrase. Newport says shut down complete, and do not think about work again until morning. This serves 2 purposes. It lets your unconscious mind process complex problems while you rest, and it recharges your directed attention, which is as real and as finite as your physical energy. Research on deliberate practice shows that even elite performers rarely sustain more than 4 hours of truly deep work per day. So the question is not whether you can grind for 12 hours. The question is whether you can protect those 4 hours and make them count. Rule 2. Embrace boredom. Most people understand that distraction is bad. What they do not understand is that fighting distraction requires training, not just intention. Newport introduces us to research by Clifford Nass, a Stanford professor who studied the effects of constant digital switching on the brain. His finding was alarming. People who multitask frequently develop a condition he called chronic distraction. Their brains lose the ability to filter out irrelevancy. They cannot sustain focus even when they try. They have, in Nass's words, become mental wrecks. The problem is not just that you are distracted while you are distracted. The problem is that constant distraction rewires your brain so that you cannot focus even when you want to. Newport's solution is counterintuitive. Instead of scheduling breaks from distraction so you can focus, schedule breaks from focus so you can be distracted. In practice, this means identify specific blocks of time when you will use the internet and allow distraction. Outside of those blocks, stay offline. Every minute spent in an offline block where you feel the urge to switch and resist it is a minute of mental training. You are building the muscle of concentration through resistance. He also describes a technique called the Roosevelt Dash. Teddy Roosevelt, as a student at Harvard, was famous for spending very little time studying, yet he maintained strong grades. How? Because when he studied, he focused with extraordinary intensity, working with a blistering concentration that let him accomplish in 1 hour what others could not do in 4. Apply this by giving yourself an artificially tight deadline for a deep task. Turn everything off, set a timer, work with maximum intensity. The discomfort of the artificial deadline forces you into a level of focus that normal conditions do not. Over time, this trains your brain to reach that level on demand. Newport also recommends productive meditation. When you're walking, driving, or doing something physical that doesn't require mental effort, use that time to work through a specific professional problem in your head. No phone, no podcast, just your mind and a hard problem. This practice is incredibly effective at building concentration and at solving problems you can't crack at your desk. Rule 3. Quit social media. This is where many people resist. Newport is not anti-technology, he is anti-distraction, and he argues that social media, as most people use it, is among the most powerful distraction mechanisms ever invented. He identifies a widespread but flawed approach to adopting new tools, which he calls the any-benefit mindset. This mindset says if a tool has any potential benefit, I should use it. This sounds reasonable until you realize that almost every tool has some potential benefit. The question is never whether a tool has some benefit. The question is whether it has enough benefit to justify what it costs in time and attention. He proposes instead the craftsman approach to tool selection. Identify what truly matters to your professional and personal success. Then ask whether each tool significantly helps you in those areas. If it doesn't clear that bar, cut it. He applies this to social media specifically with the law of the vital few, the Pareto principle, which says that roughly 20% of activities produce 80% of the results. Your top 2 or 3 activities in any goal area will produce the vast majority of your success. The dozens of other possible activities, including scrolling Twitter, might produce some marginal benefit, but they cost you the same limited time and attention as your highest value activities. Every hour spent on a low-value activity is an hour not spent on a high-value one. Newport recommends a 30-day social media experiment. Don't announce it. Don't deactivate your accounts. Just stop using the platforms for 30 days. Then ask your 2 questions. 1. Would the last 30 days have been meaningfully better if you had used those services? And 2. Did anyone notice or care that you were gone? For most people, the honest answer to both questions is no, and that answer carries important information. He also warns against using the internet to entertain yourself by default. If you fill every moment of downtime, every waiting line, every lunch break, every evening with low-quality digital stimulation, you're actively training your brain to resist depth. Instead, give yourself real downtime. Read deeply, think, have long conversations, do physically engaged activities. These are not luxuries, they are essential maintenance for a mind capable of deep work. Rule 4. Drain the shallows. The final rule is about reducing the volume of shallow work in your life so that you protect time and energy for depth. Newport begins by pointing out that not all work is equal. Some tasks are deep, some are shallow, and many people have far more shallow work in their lives than they realize or that their employers would want. He suggests a powerful exercise. For each task you regularly do, ask yourself, how long would it take to train a reasonably intelligent new hire to do this task adequately? Tasks that a smart person could learn in a few weeks are shallow. Tasks that take months or years to train are deep. If most of your workday is filled with tasks in the first category, that's a serious problem worth addressing. Newport introduces a strategy called fixed schedule productivity. Decide in advance what time you will stop working each day. Then design your day around that fixed endpoint. If you know you must be done by 5:30, you will automatically be more aggressive about cutting shallow work that doesn't contribute to your most important goals. You stop attending meetings that don't require your specific judgment. You stop checking email compulsively. You stop accepting obligations that don't move the needle. He also teaches a technique called the scheduling every minute method. At the start of each workday, open a notebook and divide the day into blocks of 30 minutes. Assign every block to a specific activity or category of activity. This does not mean you follow the schedule robotically. Unexpected things will happen and you will revise, but the act of planning forces you to confront how you are spending your time and to make intentional choices rather than drifting through the day reactively. On email, Newport offers a powerful mindset shift. Most email conversations are low-value exchanges that could be reduced dramatically with better communication habits. He recommends treating each email as a project. Before responding, ask, what is the desired outcome of this conversation, and what is the most efficient process for reaching that outcome? Then send a message that advances that process significantly, rather than sending a quick reply that generates 3 more rounds of back and forth. He also recommends being harder to reach. This does not mean being unresponsive or unprofessional. It means having clear communication about response times, using systems for handling routine requests efficiently, and not treating your inbox as a real-time messaging system that demands your constant presence. The implementation plan. Now let us turn all of this into action you can take immediately. Step 1. Identify your most important deep work. What is the one project, skill, or output that would most advance your career or your life if you spent more focused time on it? Make this your anchor. Every deep work session will be oriented toward this. Step 2. Choose your depth philosophy. Are you closer to a rhythmic person, someone who can carve out the same hours every single day? Or are you more of a bimodal person, someone who needs to block out entire days or weeks for deep focus? Or are you in a position where the journalistic approach works better, fitting depth into gaps as they appear? Choose a philosophy that fits your actual life. Step 3. Build your ritual. Before you start a deep work session, you need a sequence that shifts your brain into focus mode. This might be make coffee, close all tabs, open only the one document you need, put on instrumental music, set a timer for 90 minutes. Create this sequence and repeat it every time. Over weeks, it will become a trigger for your brain to go deep automatically. Step 4. Schedule your internet blocks. Write down specific times when you will check email and browse the internet. Between those times, stay completely offline. This is non-negotiable. The offline blocks are where you train your brain. Step 5. Start your shutdown ritual. At the end of each workday, spend 10 to 15 minutes reviewing your task lists and your calendar. Make a rough plan for tomorrow. Confirm that everything important is captured somewhere. Then say your shutdown phrase and mentally close the workday. Do not check email or think about work tasks after this point. Step 6. Track your deep hours. Every day, record how many hours you spent in genuine deep work. Keep this record visible. Weekly, review it. Set a target. Start with 10 deep hours per week and work toward it systematically. Step 7. Run the social media experiment. Pick the platforms you use most. Stop using them for 30 days without announcing it. After 30 days, answer the 2 questions honestly. Keep only what passes the test. Step 8. Practice productive meditation twice a week. On your next walk or commute, pick a specific professional problem and work on it mentally for the entire duration. No phone, no podcast, just the problem and your mind. Step 9. Start 1 Roosevelt dash per week. Pick an important deep task. Estimate how long it would normally take. Cut that time in half. Set a timer. Work with absolute teeth-gritting intensity until it is done. Notice how different that level of focus feels compared to your normal working state. Step 10. Protect your most important hours. Identify when you do your best deep thinking. Most people say morning. Block those hours as sacred and schedule shallow obligations outside them. Guard this time like money. Let us bring this together. Deep Work by Cal Newport is not a book about productivity tips. It's a book about what it means to do excellent work in the modern world. The core thesis is this: the ability to perform deep, focused, cognitively demanding work is becoming rarer. At exactly the same time, it is becoming more valuable. The people who build this ability will thrive. The people who allow their attention to be shredded by constant distraction will fall behind, not because they are lazy, but because they cannot produce at the level required. The book gives us 3 reasons why deep work matters. It's economically valuable because the new economy rewards mastery and speed of learning. It's rare because our institutions and habits actively undermine it. And it is meaningful because it is the state in which human beings experience the most engagement, satisfaction, and sense of purpose. Then it gives us 4 rules for building a deep life. Rule 1. Work deeply. Create systems, rituals, and philosophies that make deep work a regular, sustainable practice. Choose a scheduling philosophy, build rituals, make grand gestures when needed, execute with discipline using lead measures and a scoreboard, and shut down completely at the end of each day. Rule 2. Embrace boredom. Train your brain to resist distraction by scheduling internet use and spending time in focused offline blocks. Practice productive meditation. Run Roosevelt dashes to build intensity. Learn to be comfortable with silence and with the discomfort of hard thinking. Rule 3. Quit social media. Apply the craftsman approach to tool selection. Keep only what genuinely contributes to your most important goals. Run a 30-day experiment to get honest clarity about what you actually need, and refuse to use the internet as a default entertainment system. Rule 4. Drain the shallows. Schedule every minute of your day deliberately. Set a fixed end time for your workday and design around it. Be harder to reach. Process email as projects rather than quick exchanges. Reduce, delegate, or eliminate shallow work wherever you can. And the 10 implementation steps. Identify your anchor project, choose your depth philosophy, build your ritual, schedule your internet blocks, start your shutdown ritual, track your deep hours, run the social media experiment, practice productive meditation twice a week, run 1 Roosevelt dash per week, and protect your most important hours. Here's the truth. You live in an attention economy where powerful systems are designed specifically to fragment your focus and capture your time. Every scroll, every notification, every breaking update is engineered to pull you away from the work that matters. You are not failing at focus. You are being outcompeted by systems designed by the world's best engineers and psychologists. The good news is that awareness is the beginning of freedom. Now you know what is happening, and now you have a system to fight back. Cal Newport ends his book with a line that I think is worth sitting with. He writes that a deep life is a good life any way you look at it. Not just more productive, not just more successful, but better, more meaningful, more human. That's what this book is really about. Now go build it. If this breakdown helped you, subscribe to Millionaire Playbook, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment telling me which of the 4 rules you are going to implement first. I read every single one. See you in the next one.